Hello, and a warm welcome to this Grant Thornton discussion on the role that digital can play in driving modern public services and how that can support delivering financial sustainability and improved outcomes for local government. My name's Claire Hampson, and I'm an Associate Director in Grant Thornton's Public Sector Advisory Practice. With me today, I've got my colleague Tim. Perhaps you can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Claire, and lovely to be here, and thanks for inviting us in. So I'm Tim Pitts, founder of a company called Triple Value Impact, and we set up to provide the sector with a new approach to fast-track time to value using the latest digital technologies. I'm delighted to be partnered with Grant Thornton as part of that process.
So Tim, we talk to leaders in local government every day, and the challenges that they're facing are well documented. So we don't need to go through them in detail, but they can really be summarised in two things. One is increasing demand for services coupled with decreasing budgets, which together is creating kind of unprecedented pressures from, across the system.
Yeah.
And really, since austerity, what we've seen a lot of local government do is make incremental changes and salami slicing on budgets that we've seen, but really that's not overly sustainable. And we're seeing that in terms of the number of Section 114s that are coming out in recent years. We really need to be seeing local government make some fundamental changes to how they deliver and to their operating models to be really sustainable. And kind of coupled with that, local government is sitting in a wider context of digitalisation. We're changing how we live our lives, how we work, how we consume services. And yet there's quite a deficit in local government in terms of use of digital. And there's quite a gap between how they deliver services versus what we might experience from our kind of retail providers, as an example. I've certainly been in councils where they've been still using paper, copying and pasting between systems, always picking up the phone. I'm sure you have as well. I suppose from your perspective, within that context of the financial pressures and also the pressures around service delivery, what role does digital play in the future of local government?
Yeah, good question, Claire. So I think it's first, you have to acknowledge that the private sector and public sector are completely different beasts. And what you don't see in the private sector is all those companies which have failed. Local authorities are not allowed to fail, and they run such a wide, broad range of services, and quite a few of them are quite shallow in terms of their volume, which makes that investment profile very challenging. And the traditional approaches have been very reasonably well documented and have made some decent inroads, but what they've largely focused on is dealing with the demand as it comes into the system and trying to deflate and take the pressure off those services by automating self-service, etc. Now is the time to take the opportunity of being able to try and preempt that demand, understand where the demand's coming from and get ahead of the demand and stop the demand coming into the system, going back to your point on increasing demand. I think that's the biggest opportunity you've got in the sector at the moment. And looking across the sector, we've looked at 150, 200 different technologies over the last few months. There is loads of really great technologies out there which make a massive difference to the way you deliver services. We built business cases for about 40 of those specific answers, covering the top sort of 50 to 75 budget areas of every authority. And we believe for an average or a typical authority, there's at least 5% of your revenue budget you can influence in quite a relatively straightforward way, in a far less risky way than previously done, using these different technologies which are available in the market. And the other thing the sector really suffers from is what I call pilotitis. Everyone likes to test these technologies out. Now that delays your time to value by years, typically. These technologies are largely proven. It's time to move away from that pilotitis. Be bold, take the opportunities, they are there, and they can fundamentally change some of your service delivery models.
I think that understanding of the role that digital plays in local government and in its future, I think is quite widely understood in terms of there is a need for it. You and I held a workshop not so long ago where we asked directors of finance how important is digital transformation to the delivery of your ambition? And 92% of them said it was either mission critical or important. So I think that understanding that it is an important tool that you need to be applying is clearly understood. However, we asked the same people, how confident are you in the delivery of that digital to support your ambition? And 65% said not very confident. So there's again, a clear gap there in terms of an understanding that we need to do this, but maybe a nervousness around what do we do and how do we do it, and do we have the skills in order to deliver that? So from your experience in talking to leaders, what are the barriers and what's driving that nervousness in terms of delivery of digital?
Yeah, to be honest, it's completely understandable.
Yeah.
The promise of tech is quite often not delivered, and people have spent millions and millions and not got as far as they're certainly nowhere near where their business case wanted to. And I think it's really exacerbated by the talent challenge. We ran a series of sort of Chatham House dinners for CDIOs by region. We had most of the CDIOs attend. And the number one challenge every single CDIO said is we can't attract the top talent, the top tech talent. And even when they've trained them up, they tend to disappear because they can get offered so much more money in the sector. However, if you look at the latest technology trends and the opportunities which are out them, what you really need is a brilliant commissioning core. And the CDIOs, we know many of them. There's some fantastic talent you've got out there. You need to trust their judgment. Make sure you get the commissioning core right, and don't try and build a model which is totally reliant on yourselves. The very large authorities probably can afford to, but the vast majorities can't. Leverage a brilliant CDIO who can really understand what to commission, what to look out for. Don't build massive capabilities in-house. You just won't be able to afford to.
I suppose linked to what you're saying in terms of having a really strong commissioning core is also, I suppose, an understanding that actually a lot of customer journeys across local government are the same across all councils, whether that be detecting fraud in HMOs or delivering council tax or even parking. I know that I've got a lot of different parking apps on my phone, as I'm sure many others have as well. Actually being able to understand that there is best practice out there in terms of how to deliver consistent services that don't really change by the conditions of place or socioeconomic characteristics, actually being able to leverage that best practice and by commissioning that in, actually will give you that greater efficiency and also greater confidence in delivery as well. I think from my perspective, in terms of addressing some of those that nervousness and challenge, really local authorities really also need to be thinking about kind of the robustness of their business cases at the outset, really drive that by kind of data and insight and having that as a core foundation. And equally at the outset, we're thinking about what does success really look like? I see a number of authorities kind of implementing digital, but maybe not necessarily always extracting the benefit as well. So really having that focus at the outset in terms of how they can extract that. I suppose they're my reflections from a kind of more my consulting kind of background. But I suppose from your perspective, Tim, what else should local authorities be thinking about in order to, I suppose, bridge some of that nervousness or lack of confidence gap?
Yeah. So as I said previously, I totally understand people's nervousness with technology. There's been a lot of money spent and often not the returns you're expecting. I think the first thing is everyone is really an expert in digital. You just don't realise it. If you've got a smartphone, which everyone has nowadays, pretty much everyone, you are an expert. You use all those digital technologies constantly. You just don't know it. And you just have to turn that unwitting consciousness into witting consciousness, if that makes sense. And, if you think about it, if you're going on a holiday or you're going on a train, you're getting preemptive nudges to go and do certain things to reduce the cost on their services. And that's all about demand. If you look at your insurance, when you're applying for insurance, it's all done in a few seconds nowadays, whereas previously it used to take ages and people have to process and do risk scoring. All that's just automated now. So just think about all those things which you're just doing naturally in your life. And you look at all the stuff you're seeing on your phone, oh my goodness, it's really pushing stuff and it knows a huge amount about you. And therein lies the opportunity. And it's not just you who are becoming an expert. Most people are now quite digitally savvy. They just probably don't realise it. Now, don't get me wrong, there are always those who are digitally excluded. And even if I consider my parents who are in their 90s, they're quite happy using most digital technologies, although can be quite sceptical about data in particular, which you need to be very conscious of. As I said previously, preempting demand is probably the biggest opportunity you've got. And there are some fabulous examples out there. You'd look at potholes as an example. Everyone loves to talk about potholes. It's council's number one problem. There is technology which allows you to go and identify all the potholes in your authority using AI to measure the depth, that fundamentally changes that business model. You don't need anyone reporting stuff into the contact centre anymore. You don't need with the highways officers to go out on the streets with their yellow spray cans, spraying around the potholes you need fixing. That fundamentally changes the model and enables you to move from a reactive maintenance mode to a much more proactive one. You look at tech and what it can do, so tech-enabled care, and what it can do in the domiciliary care market. Domiciliary care market is an absolute nightmare for everyone up and down the country. Not enough people want to work in the domiciliary care sector. And you hear about dom care providers going out of business left, right, and centre. That tech can completely deflate the pressure on that dom care market and prepare you for the increase in demand which is coming. And those examples just go on and on and on, whether it's things like using data science in children's services, for example. Your social workers don't have a chance of looking at the thousands and thousands and thousands of records on children. But actually using data science, you can use that to look at all the data and work out which children at highest risk are going to care, as an example. You can use things like advanced digital marketing to find foster carers. There's a massive cost of using the IFAs to recruit your foster carers. It costs you 40% more. The business case is phenomenal. So if you look at all of those things in conjunction, they're actually quite specific solutions to specific problems, and there is a massive answer. It's sat there ready to go. And as I say, we've looked at 150, 200 different suppliers or potential technologies which can address these particular challenges we've got, and we believe the opportunity is massive.
And last question, Tim, we've been working on a workshop to help local authorities accelerate their digital journey. Give us a quick insight in terms of what that looks like.
Yeah, so I've been very pleasantly surprised with the feedback we've had. We've run a few of these sessions now, and you go through all 40 of those opportunities as a corporate management team, and you go through and prioritise them as you go through each one of them. It takes about a day to go through a session. But the feedback we've had from all the participants has been incredible. They've been able to identify, in most cases, a large, substantial amount of their budget gap they believe they can address with some of these technologies. And it's a huge opportunity for the sector. And it's just a completely different approach from the traditional, where you get tons and tons of people in to go and run right across your organisation, try and work out where all the problems are. Everyone knows where the problems are. Let's stop looking at where the problems are. You just need to look at your budgets. It's not particularly complicated. Let's go straight to the answer. Let's go straight to the business case, and let's see if we can really accelerate that time to value. And that's what the Digital Blueprint approach and the accelerator is all about.
Thanks so much for your time, Tim. It's been a really helpful conversation. And thank you so much for joining us today. If you'd like us to help you with accelerating your digital journey, please get in touch.